Hey, welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. Today we have one fantastic encounter story from Manitoba, Canada. It's a long one, so that's the reason why I'm only reading one today. Long or not, I think you guys are going to enjoy this story. Before we get started, if you're enjoying these encounter stories, then show your support by hitting that like button and subscribe if you are new. Thank you all who continue to show your support by subscribing. Okay, you guys ready? Go grab yourself your favorite beverage and sit back and relax. Alright, this first story takes place on September 27th, 2004 in Manitoba, Canada, near Seven Sister Falls. I am 53 years old and have spent half my life in the woods of Manitoba, Canada. I currently live in Winnipeg, Manitoba and work for the provincial government. I don't hunt anymore, but I have had decades of hunting experience, including archery. In fact, during my high school days, we hunted bears almost every day after school in the fall and spring. I worked at the largest taxidermy facility in Canada for years and continue with my own business after, a total of 30 years experience. In other words, I know the biology and habitats of animals of North America and the Manitoba woods inside and out. Recently, I have been spending time out in a provincial park here called White Shell Provincial Park. The park borders on the Ontario west side and is literally at the edge of nothing. In fact, if you go north or northeast, you could go for thousands of miles without coming across any civilization. About 8 years ago, a friend and I canoed and portaged deep into the White Shell only to set up our tents and be hassled most of the night by a very large animal that I could not recognize. I have used calls in archery hunting for bears, moose, deer, and so on, but have never heard anything like this. We do have cougars here, very rare, and it was not that either. It spooked the hell out of me so much so that I have not camped since. We had canoed across a 5-mile wide lake called the Big White Shell Lake and portaged 1 mile into Ritchie Lake. From there, we made our way down Ritchie Lake, which is 2¼ miles, to another portage at One Lake. This portage is only a few hundred yards long, and One Lake is 3/4 of a mile long. When we reached the far end of One Lake, we set up camp on a rock outcrop shaped like a dome. This dome was between the lake and a deep conifer forest with the rock dome forming a point out into the lake. This trip was all done in July in 30 degrees Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. I was exhausted and really needed sleep and rest. As soon as it was dark, we were in the tent and ready for sleep. My partner was asleep instantly, and I started to drift off. I heard a large branch snap down in the low-treed area behind the tent. My first thought was that it had to take a large animal to snap off a small tree or branch to produce a sound that big. My second thought was it has to be a bear or moose, for they are the only animals here that are big enough. I was so tired that it was past a point of concern. I just needed to get to sleep. The White Shell is a mixture of deciduous and coniferous trees pocketed every second mile with a small lake. Some of these areas between the lakes can be extremely dense with foliage. It was shortly after the snap sound that the low grunting and vowel type of sound started from down in the thick part of this low area. It was dark, and the sounds kept up at a steady rate with some breaks only to restart again. After about an hour, I could not take it anymore. My partner was sensing that something was wrong with me and needed to do something. She awoke asking, "What is wrong?" This was followed by, "I have never seen you like this before." I said, "There is an animal out there that will not shut up." With that comment and total aggravation, I grabbed the flashlight and headed outside. I stood outside the tent, shining the flashlight into the bush, shouting out profanities at the animal. It was quiet now, and I returned to the sleeping bag, only to go through the whole process again about 20 minutes later. This time I hurled stones into the bush with all the rest of my ranting and raving. Again, 20 minutes later, it started up again. It was really late by now, and I just did not give a damn anymore, relenting to the idea that what will be, and whatever fate awaits us is fine. I fell asleep shortly after that, and I woke up the next morning confirming we were still alive. I had heard it splashing around at times in the water, so I tried to find tracks that morning, but it was all grown over with willows and tall grass. I was not that comfortable going into the thick bush to look around without a weapon, so I never did find out what it was. The next strange occurrence was even more remarkable. It took place 6 years ago, about 20 miles west of the first incident. I was researching a 5,000-year-old archaeological site in the Whiteshell that is just about 4 miles into the Black Woods. This was a spiritual corner for the ancient natives, and is very removed even for those days, for it is not near any water source or canoe route. They marked these sites with boulder arrangements on the ground known as petroforms or rock mosaics. As described above, this area is composed of a patchwork of exposed rock and thick forested areas. These forested areas are composed of coniferous and deciduous trees, with the exposed smooth rock having large areas of carpids made up of moss and lichen growth. It was at one of these ancient sites that I was about to start up a short 400-foot moss-covered trail with a 20-degree slope that the second incident took place. There was a rock ridge at the top of this slope that I wanted to check out after spotting it between a necked-down clearing in the forest. This small opening in the bush was about 50 feet across. Passing through this opening to the right edge of the wooded area, made up of mainly cedar and spruce, I was startled by an overwhelming, loud voice talking to me from behind the foliage 20 feet away. Without thinking, I assumed it was a bear, so I yelled back at it, telling it where to go. Everything was quiet after that. As I continued to walk past this spot and up the slope, I knew it didn't sound like a bear, but I decided just to put it aside for now. The short trail looked like a bear trail, and it is about 10 inches wide in the moss that covers the smooth rock surface below it. I was up onto the rock ridge only minutes later, realizing that there was no native site there. I turned around 3 to 4 minutes later and started back down the trail. As I approached the spot where the sound came from, I was looking down the slope onto the trail like you would when walking down an incline. With one foot in the air and almost stepping down, I was surprised to see in the middle of the trail a dead spruce grouse. I had almost stepped on it. It had been placed there within a 3 to 4 minute period. It was arranged very neatly with the wing tucked together underneath the body, head and neck pointing straight up the trail towards me. It was at this point that I realized what the earlier sound was, and a chill came over me as I quickly walked away from the area. I realized that the bird was a food offering of some kind and was placed there shortly after I had passed. I had read in the past of food offerings being placed outside of campers' tents by these animals. There was no way it was there on the trail on my way up, because a person has a tendency to look down at the trail when going up a slope. The bird was definitely placed there for me. These sounds I heard had a structure, and I felt like it was a language of some kind. There was a definite pattern and cadence to the half-minute sentence that was blasted at me. It felt similar to hearing someone speak a language that you're not familiar with. You can hear words sometimes, and at the other time sounds like something slurred into another, making it impossible to isolate individual words in the sentence. I did not sense any aggravation or aggression from the sounds, just a high decibel level of one very large animal that was vocal and trying to say something to me. To hear exactly what the sound is like, the link below provides a sample that is very close. The only difference is that I heard a series that was 4 times as long and no whistling at any time. Alan Berry recorded the sound in California in 1978. It is a soundtrack at the very top of the list. Okay, guys, so I'm going to include this link below in this storyline. On the way back to the vehicle, I felt very foolish. Here was an intelligent individual trying to make contact, and I was not prepared. I blew it. I'm still regretting it to this day. I also secretly wonder that if it had happened again, can I stay cool and calm? In the spring of June 5th, 2004, something happened in a similar manner. I was leading a group of people around a large archaeological site 1.5 miles from the vocal incident a few years prior. Standing at the edge of a valley, I said to the group, "Do you want me to try calling a Sasquatch?" I had read years ago that this could produce an equal answer response from a Sasquatch if there was one in the area. They agreed, so I picked up a large branch and struck it 3 times against a dried pine tree that was laying on a rock at the valley's edge. After 2 series of 3 blows and no response from the valley below, we started to leave the area. About 400 yards onto our trail, there was again another dead grouse on the trail. It was like the first one years earlier, with its wings tucked in and laying straight, placed in the middle of our original trail that we took to the valley's edge. There was no rigor mortis, so I reached down and tucked a finger under the wing into the breast feather, and it was still slightly warm. It was spring and cool weather, enough to bring the temperature of this body to atmospheric level within half an hour, so I concluded that it was a fresh kill. We finished the trip without any other incident. I returned to the valley's edge again 2.5 months later in August 20th to find that the dried pine tree was smashed to pieces. A bear is the only thing that would do this, looking for grubs and insects. The problem is that the tree is very dry and laying on a rock mantle, not a place that would be conducive for insects to be interested in. Insects find homes in moist wood and humus or leaf mulch beds. Bears are lazy and will not make an effort unless they smell food. There was no reason for a bear to smash up this tree and twist off to the side one of the branches. This broken branch is a fork of this forked tree and was 3 feet off the ground with a diameter at the base of 5 inches. This branch was twisted around and snapped like a toothpick. This would take an articulated hand to accomplish, not that of a bear. It would also take an incredible amount of strength. I realized at the time that this smashed tree was a calling card of some kind. This is an extremely remote area, not even traveled by hunters because of its location. In more than 20 times that I have been there, I have never seen anyone. It is that remote. I took a picture of the tree to show the original group that was there in the spring. Weeks later, I realized that there could be hair left on the branches because of the degree of destruction. So on my next trip back, I checked, and there was a small amount of what looked like black kinky hair clinging to the large branch that was twisted off to the side. On this last trip up there, it had rained, and I was walking along the smooth rock of the valley's edge. I slipped and fell to my side. I picked myself up, and my friend and I proceeded towards the smashed tree site. We studied the smashed tree and found the hair. I had this weird feeling that there was something over to the right watching us, so I used my binoculars to scan the tree line. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. From there, we started back through the brush to the trail. On the way back to the trail is a large blown-down tree that I wanted to check out more from a prior visit. I had found charcoal under the root system suggesting ancient fires in the area. As we approached the spot, my companion looked at me and said, what is that smell?" I jokingly said it's either a bear or a Sasquatch. She said it smelled like something rotten. The bush we were in is long and narrow, so the source of the smell would have been very close to our immediate right or left. I could not see anything even with the binoculars searching our surroundings. I truly believe that when we are in the forest, we were being watched all the time. This fall that I had on the slippery rock piqued an interest in the creature to possibly show concern or emotional attachment by getting closer. I had not put this together until I read a report on the BFRO site in which a similar experience happened to a hunter. The hunter had slipped, falling to the ground. A Sasquatch stood up near him, revealing itself, showing concern for him. That is, until the hunter's gun came up, ending the encounter with the Sasquatch screaming off into the woods. It just goes to show you the level of emotional ability that these creatures have and how empathetic they are. Add to this, a deep interest and need to observe shows intelligence and communicative skills in their own understanding. It does make sense to me that contact happens. The average wild animal would just leave the area altogether. But some of these creatures want to communicate. Wow, I don't know what to say. This was truly a great story. This is the first story I've read on this channel that a Sasquatch has left a gift. Now, if this has happened to you, please leave your comment below. I would really like to hear what you have to say with regards to this one. Well, that's going to be a wrap for today. If you would like to share your encounter stories in a safe environment, please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Your stories can be as anonymous as you would like, and I'd love to hear from you soon. Bye for now, and see you all next week.